Wonderful, and welcome to June 7th, 2021 Social Equity Working Group meeting. Before we begin the meeting, I'd like to ask Evelia Castellanos, who's serving as our clerk today, to confirm if we have a quorum.
We have a quorum, Chair Moreno.
Wonderful. Well, I'd like to review the process for both the working group members as well as members of the public who wish to speak under public comment. For working group members, when you'd like to speak, please click on the raised hand icon in the Zoom control panel. You have control of your video and mute, so please turn on your camera when you'd like to speak and I will call on you. Does anybody have any questions? No, hearing none. I would like to introduce our interpreter, Carlos, and he's going to be giving explanations on interpretation. So Carlos, take it away.
Thank you very much and good morning. As was just announced, we do have interpretation available for this meeting. To use the feature, please scroll down to the bottom of your Zoom screen where your meeting controls are. Then click on the interpretation icon. It looks like a little world, and then select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app on a cell phone, tablet, and so on, first press the ellipsis, the three dots, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. I will now make the same announcement in Spanish. Buenos días, bienvenidos a esta sesión del Grupo de Trabajo de Equidad Social. Se está ofreciendo servicio de interpretación. Para hacer uso del mismo, por favor desplácese a la parte inferior de su pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, parece un globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish o Español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, en celular, tableta, etc., presione primero los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Por último, si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. Gracias and thank you.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Evelia, can you provide a quick reminder on how the public comment will work?
Yes. For working group members, when you would like to speak, please click on the raise hand icon in the Zoom control panel. You have control of your video and mute, so you please turn on your camera when you would like to speak, and I will call on you. Do you have any questions before we continue?
All right, it doesn't sound like anybody has any questions. Thank you for that. So we are going to go into our first item, which is welcome and introductions. So this is the opportunity for our working group members to introduce themselves, their organizations, and the area of the region they represent so that the public joining us today are aware. And I will, for the sake of this meeting, I'll start calling names. Carol, would you like to introduce yourself, followed by Caro, and then Chris Velasco?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carol Lewis. I'm with the El Cajon Collaborative and serving East County.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Carolina, and I'm with the Environmental Health Coalition. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's see, Chris Velasco.
Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Velasco. I'm an intern at Sandag. I work under Jane Clough.
Wonderful. Sorry about that. Barry
Pollard from the, hold on, do I need to raise my hand or can you hear me?
We could hear you.
Okay, great. Barry Pollard from the Urban Collaborative Project in beautiful Southeast San Diego.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to Faye.
Hello, good morning. I'm Faye Seligman with Operation Samahan. We serve National City and the surrounding areas of the South Bay region.
Wonderful, thank you. Craig Jones, followed by Erica Leary.
Morning, everybody. Craig Jones with the Alliance for Regional Solutions, a strong collaborative of North County now with over 75 community service entities, educational, social service, et cetera, and with the jurisdictions in North County. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Erica Leary with Vista Community Clinic, working primarily in neighborhoods of Oceanside and Vista.
Thank you. Haneen Mohammed, followed by Rosina Lizarraga. Rosina, are you there? Would you like to introduce yourself?
I was waiting for Mohammed.
You can go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Rosina Lizarraga, representing the Kitchenistas and the residents of National City on South Bay. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica, if you'd like to introduce yourself, followed by Stephanie Hernandez and let's see, Lorna de los Santos.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Monica Hernandez from Casa Familiar, serving San Isidro and the South Bay.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Stephanie Hernandez with City Heights CDC, serving primarily the City Heights area.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Lorna de los Santos, Samahan Health Center, serving South Bay. Thank you.
Wonderful. One more time for Haneen Mohammed. If you're there, if you'd like to introduce yourself. And Jane, did I call on everybody?
No, my name is Brenda Lee Rodriguez from the Chula Vista Community Collaborative. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Thank you.
Let's see. And Brianne Lash.
Hey, I'm Brianne Lash with Nile Sisters Development Initiative. We are located in City Heights and serve the greater San Diego community.
Wonderful. If we can just get a really quick introduction from staff, if you'd like to start it off, Jane.
Sure. I'm Jane Clough. I'm the working group coordinator for the Social Equity Working Group here at Sandag.
Duary Faola, Principal Regional Planner here at Sandag.
Alex Estrella, also Principal Regional Planner for Sandag.
Evelia Castellanos, clerk of the working group.
Is that it?
Oh, Brian Lane, Sandag Senior Transit Planner.
This is Allison Wood, Senior Planner, Project Manager for the Regional Plan.
Thank you. And I'm Vivian Moreno. I am the chair, and during the day, though, I'm a council member for the City of San Diego in District 8. So do we have any comments from the public, clerk?
And we have one more, Catherine. She's so busy.
Sorry, I wasn't sure how to unmute myself. Catherine Mattel, Regional Planning Intern, working directly under Jane Clough.
Thank you. It's good to have you here. I think there was one member, Mohammed, right? I don't know if
Haneen
Mohammed.
Oh, yeah, I don't believe he's here.
Okay, all righty. So thank you, everybody, for the introductions. We're going to move on to the next item. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have any comments from the public, clerk, on that on the introduction item? I didn't see any hands raised, but just
I don't see any hands raised either, Chair Moreno.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to the next item, which is item number 2, member public comment. Members of the public shall have the opportunity to address the working group on any issues within the jurisdiction of Sandag that is not on the agenda. Do we have any public comments? I don't see any. So if working group members have any comments or announcements of interest to the rest of the working group, please either turn on your camera or raise your hand at this time. Let me see. I don't see anybody. Okay, so we are going to move on. Do we have any comments from the public, clerk? If you could just verify.
No hands raised.
Wonderful, thank you. So we're going to move on to item number 3, which is approval of the April 1st meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the April 1st, 2021 minutes?
Motion by Barry Pollard.
Mr. Pollard, May I have a second?
Second by Carol.
Second by Carol. And so we have a motion and a second, and I'm going to call on the clerk for the roll call vote. Please, clerk.
Alliance for Regional Solution, Craig Jones.
Approve.
Bayside Community Clinic, Kim Henley.
Approve.
Casa Familiar, Monica Hernandez.
Approve.
City Heights, Stephanie Hernandez.
Approve.
Chula Vista Community Collaborative, Brenda Lee.
Approved.
El Cajon Collaborative, Carol Lewis.
Approve.
National Latino Research Center, Conan Martinez. National Latino Research Center, Conan Martinez.
Conani's not here.
Do we have a member for the National Latino Research Center that is voting today?
Not that I can see.
Nile Sisters Development Initiative, Elizabeth Liu.
Brianne is here.
Brianne Lash.
Approved.
Olivewood Gardens, Rosina Lizarraga.
Rosina Lizarraga, Olive Gardens, approved.
Samahan Health Centers, Faye Selican.
Approve.
Urban Collaborative Project, Barry Poland.
Pollard. And I approve.
Vista Community Clinic, Erica Leary.
Approve.
And the motion passes with those present.
Wonderful, thank you. So item 1 passes unanimously with those members present. Now, at this point, if any working group members would like to offer any comments or questions, please either turn on your camera or raise your hand at this time. Do we have any comments from the public, clerk?
We do not have any hands raised.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we are going to move on to item number 4, which is the chair's report. The draft San Diego Forward, the 2021 regional plan was released for public comment on May 28th, 2021, and it's going to continue to July 30th. This is a significant milestone in the process, and this is the time to understand the plan and what it brings to all of our communities. So today's meeting is a workshop to give the working group an opportunity to ask questions and bring issues to the table. This is the first of several opportunities to provide input and discuss the plan. A series of 6 virtual open houses in June between the 15th and the 30th is planned. And all are in the evening beginning at 6 p.m. Translation will be available, and they will have a sub-regional focus. So please check sdforward.com for details. I would also encourage you to have your community members participate. There's also going to be a virtual joint working group forum with all of SANDAG's working groups, including us, on June 16th at 10 a.m. Then we're going to come back in July to share what you heard in your communities. And finally, there's going to be 2 public hearings in late July at the board and transportation committee. So let's get into it. If working group members would like to make any comments or have questions, obviously please turn on your cameras and raise your hands. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to staff. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Chair. So good morning, everyone. And while I know that staff is going to pull up the presentation, I just want to say again, it really is a pleasure for us to be here today with the working group to talk about the draft 2021 regional plan. And for this plan, we've been talking about this being a transformational transportation system that's harmonized to optimize mobility for everyone who really uses it. And the presentation that we're giving today is the same presentation that staff gave to our board members last month. So we're thrilled to be able to have this conversation of questions and discussions with you. And as you all know, we released the draft 2021 regional plan on May 21st, and the public comment period for the plan started on May 28th, and it'll continue through July 30th. But today, just as we did with the board, we're going to set the stage in terms of the system as a whole, and then we're going to dig into the details by subregion. So next slide. Okay, so as you've heard our staff say multiple times, we've aimed to create a regional plan that included a system of projects. So a system to get people from where they are to where they need to go, and a system that needs to work together to really be effective. And today's transportation system is there, but it's not really as harmonized or as well coordinated. And the different layers of transportation don't always allow for people to get exactly from where they are to where they need to go very efficiently. And so with this regional plan, you're going to hear in the presentations today that some parts of the system are meant to deal with climate change, reducing vehicles miles travel, or simply providing travel options. And some projects such as light synchronization are meant to better improve our movements of our transit on corridors. And then other parts really embrace technology and ensure that all elements of the system are working together. And by 2050, which is the horizon year of the plan, one of the statistics that Ray Major gave when he first gave this presentation is that we will have over 10,000 transfer points that allow for people to utilize the entire system together. And the first layer that you see here is our land use layer. And these areas on the map are the densest part of our region. They're the densest layers that you can find within our region. They have the most population, the most employment in our region. And in these areas with the plan, you have options for walking, for biking, and we'll continue to enhance that throughout the development of the 2021 regional plan. And we need to really also offer alternatives to driving in these areas, such as e-bikes or flexible fleets. If you'll do another click for the next layer. And then going outside of these communities, because we know that people need to travel not only within those dense areas, but outside. And so this layer here is our local buses. And so local buses give people an alternative to driving, and it's a system that allows people to move between these areas or outside of these areas. People use local buses often for shorter trips, and using local buses does help towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions and vehicles miles travel. And we see that this should be facilitated and supported by flexible fleets, as well as e-bikes and many other types of mobility within the region. Next click. And so this next system here shown in green is our managed lanes. And these are interregional and our urban corridors. And they're managed by some of the lanes having tolling, so high occupancy tolls on some of those lanes, and all of the lanes having road user charges, which allows us the potential to really change user behavior and to create an area where we can have priority for high occupancy vehicles and for transit on those lanes. And the next. And so this next layer is our next gen rapid. We don't currently have this in our system today, but this is a system that would be convenient, it would be safe, it would be reliable, and it have frequencies such as 10-minute headways and run on separated guideways or dedicated lanes to allow for those longer trips that people need to take on transit, and it also offers them an alternative to driving. And then in this next layer, you'll see our light rail system. And light rail can accommodate a variety of trip lengths. It can help connect people to employment centers, to higher education and recreational areas. And it includes new grade separations at intersections and allows for cars and trains to no longer have the conflicts that they may have today. And then the last click. And actually, I think if you do one more, because that one, the red right there is our light rail. There you go. The purple is our commuter rail line, which accommodates longer trips, such as those trips that might be coming from the border going to downtown, or even further north into our major employment centers, such as Sorrento Valley. And so again, this is the regional plan proposing a system that has over 10,000 connections between these layers, and it's hundreds of projects. And all of these projects are shown in Appendix A of the plan, which I hope many of you, and I know some of you have found online. Go to the next slide, please. And so in Appendix A, you will find that there are 11 corridors within our region. And these corridors are really helping to connect people to jobs, to quality healthcare, and just give travel options. And there are multiple projects within it. And within Appendix A, you'll see the details of the projects such as active transportation, where our managed lane connectors are, where are the types of transit that we're proposing, as well as the things that you're seeing listed here on the screen. So next slide. I'm sorry, actually, you can go to the next slide. These are the different parts that are within the Appendix A. So I want to now let our team play the video that's going to show each of the 3 sub-regional presentations. And then after the video ends, we're more than happy. We have staff here, as you heard the introductions, to dive into questions and discussions with each of you.
So I'm going to zoom in on North County, a region that demonstrates a great opportunity for an integrated system mobility that captures the essence of what the 5 big moves can provide for everyone, from solo drivers to the transit dependent to those that want a safe and convenient option on their bike or scooter. Lots of residents take short trips around the region, yet there's a need for people to connect with other parts of the region for work and leisure travel. North County's coastal corridor serves as a thoroughfare for highway goods movement to Los Angeles, and that impacts the highway travel experience for North County residents needing to reach other communities in the area in a timely manner. Here's a snapshot of North County and how it can be re-envisioned from a transportation perspective to meet VMT reduction goals while improving quality of life for residents, employees, and visitors traveling throughout the area daily. In a second, I'll show you the existing system, and then we'll jump through what we envision for 2025, 2035, and for 2050. Data shows that people moving around North County are traveling in all directions. Commuters need to do short trip north to south trips, and they often jump on the 78 for just a few exits. Others are using the 78 to go the full 20 miles. There's a real opportunity to leverage the area's strong north-south arterial roadway network to ease demand on highways by deploying local on-demand fleets to make point-to-point connections. So now we're all very familiar with North County's existing transportation system and its challenges. Parts of the 78, 5, and 15 get congested at various times of the day. Today, without a complete system of managed lanes, even folks in a carpool are stuck in traffic when the managed lanes end on the I-15. Rail services are well placed in many places inland and along the coast, but the trains don't come often enough yet. Buses are often sitting in traffic, especially at congested intersections and other congestion points. Biking connections are somewhat weak or need to be much better protected from high-speed roadway traffic. It's also important, though, to recognize all the vital assets in North County. The region has thriving job centers, there are popular coastal destinations, and thoroughfares to get there. Good roadway connectivity, enabling us to reach every North County community while respecting the area's lagoons, preserves, and agricultural areas. Projects identified in the draft regional plan for North County address these challenges in a way that produces tangible results. From a GHG reduction perspective, and our need to ensure people of all ages, abilities, and income levels have access to safe, fair, clean, and fast transit solutions. All of the regional mobility hub areas you see here already have developed to be full of home, work, shopping, dining, and recreational opportunities. These are the hotspots, so to speak, where coastal villages, colleges, major employment sites, and a lot of retail is based. People live, work, or visit these areas. While there may still be opportunities to plan and build some infill development, there's no questioning these locations as real travel destinations for North County, locals, and others in the region. So now, I'd like to walk you through a phased set of improvements that transition North County into a place where I truly believe that driving, riding transit, hailing a fleet, or biking can be all possible. All of the North County hub areas represent opportunities to introduce more travel options to the communities that the building blocks for hub success. A high concentration of people and places. All that needs to be added are a larger variety of convenient travel choices coupled with land use changes. Many people travel to or between North County coastal hubs via the I-5. By 2025, carpool lanes will be open and ready to help cars with 2 or more people flow much more freely up and down the coast. A vital inland rail trail link is added to the active transportation network, providing a safe off-street path that connects many rail stations, civic centers, and universities. You'll see the active network built out more by 2035. North County boasts a solid arterial roadway network connecting many communities. 2025 will serve as a starting point for implementing smart intersection improvements and other active demand management technologies to ensure pooled rides and local transit can cruise by the congestion. These technology improvements work to enhance safety and more efficient operations for all modes. A new next-gen rapid service connecting Escondido to Oceanside via Palomar Airport Road and a portion of SR 78, offering a much-needed east-west connection traversing the area's 3 major hub centers, while offering a Sprinter South type of experience. Rapid vehicle priority on the road coupled with 10-minute frequencies will contribute to a stress-free travel experience. Rail travel up and down the coast is more convenient with coaster trains running every 30 minutes during the peak commute times. And then while not shown on the map, local buses will start seeing improvements as well, getting some of the same priority treatments as next-gen rapids, with some routes getting frequency and span of service bumps to help those that need transit outside standard working hours. Working with the transit agencies, the region will continue to convert transit vehicles to zero emission, helping to make our region's air quality even better. So over the next 10 years, the region will start seeing more projects and policies come online, making the 5 Big Move system even more robust. 2035 is a pivotal point for our regional mobility hub areas as transit and roadway infrastructure is greatly enhanced, all while providing a unique place for a wide variety of flexible fleets to thrive. Everything from personal owned micromobility to on-demand shuttles that help people reach coaster or Sprinter and all types of local destinations. True door-to-door options. Since it's simply not practical to feature fixed route transit services on every road and guarantee a transfer-free experience, particularly in a suburban setting like North County that also features challenges with canyons and hills, our mobility hubs and flexible fleets will be needed to move residents more creatively. In 2035, we fully deploy managed lanes on SR 78 to ease congestion and really have the corridor be responsive in near real time to current traffic conditions. A better managed corridor has a positive impact on all the local roads connecting to it. Freeway and managed lanes connectors offer a much smoother, congestion-free transition between the 78 in both directions on the 5 and 15. Completed inland rail trail between Oceanside to Escondido and everywhere in between, really allowing for residents to use their bikes for commutes, errands, and for fun. Even more bike path miles along the coast and inland to help folks rapidly adopting e-bikes and other micromobility solutions move more safely in their neighborhoods. The frequent coaster service gets extended to Camp Pendleton and can start seeing speeds up to 110 miles an hour to decrease travel times. The Sprinter will now be coming every 15 minutes all day with added double tracking and grade separations, keeping as much roadway traffic away from the rails. 5 new rapid services come online, heading in various directions, as so many North County residents do, making it possible to travel from hub to hub. Palomar Airport Road is reimagined as a tech-savvy corridor while giving rapid the fixed guideway priority and attention it deserves to reach the thriving tech industry North County has worked so hard to nurture and grow. Local buses and flexible fleets will be given more operating funds to increase services where they truly are needed. By now, we'll be offering transit for cheaper for many riders, so residents and workers will see transit as the perfect option for them. As you can see with this build out by 2035, the region has extensive managed lanes and connectors, smarter streets, and lots more transit options. The options for those without access to a car will be equitable, allowing for economic freedom for all. So by 2050, our denser neighborhoods and businesses are built up with safer streets and smarter managed roads and freeways. County residents in or near mobility hubs will now have enough fast and safe options to do their errands and work trips in something other than their car. For those that still need to drive, we continue to manage the roads and freeways. I-15 north of Escondido will get managed lanes to the county line. I-5 from the county line to the South County will now be fully managed as well. Our bike network will continue to grow and be connected to more and more places. As we've seen in other great regions of the country and the world, once these networks are built, people really will use them. The Sprinter gets extended to the Escondido Mall, and we'll see 10-minute frequencies. Again, with built-up mobility hubs and frequencies like these on local buses and rapids, Coaster and Sprinter, riders will be able to take transit seamlessly. With the Coaster seeing further improvements near the university area, more residents and employees will be able to take a couple modes of transit and get to where they need to go quickly and safely. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex to show you the east-west connections.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning. My name is Alex Estrella, and I served as a co-lead for the complete quarters with Tuari Faola, and both of us will be presenting the East-West subregion. And here's a snapshot of the proposed improvements along the subregion, which is bound by the I-5 quarters, as you can see to the west, and it also extends to the inland communities through our suburban and rural communities to the east. And this subregion is characterized by a diverse range of environments from the rural inland communities to the urban neighborhoods along the western end. Now, through this subregion, our data reveal that critical travel connections are being made by people commuting from rural and suburban residential areas in the east to urban communities and outlying job centers. And within this subregion, we also consider the mobility needs of our rural communities. For example, for our rural corridors, just like State Route 67, access for emergency evacuations and access for first responders to rural communities is a critical need. So to address and help meet the needs of the subregion, among the central projects that you will see for the subregion include, for example, some early improvements in rapid transit services, intersection and railway technology improvements in the earlier stages of the regional plan. But we also have 3 managed lanes along the subregion, which are complemented with next generation rapid transit services. We also have a major commuter rail proposed by the 2050 phase. So when all put together, all the projects proposed in the subregion really create a fabric that will provide convenient travel options, improve connectivity within and between these regional hubs that you see here and within the respective communities to improve transportation system efficiency, safety, and while reducing congestion and VMT. Now, before we introduce the projects by phase, let me just walk you through some of the existing network conditions in the subregion. Now, there are several corridors that provide that backbone for the east-west travel in this region, connecting people and goods to places of employment, local community, businesses and shops, and residences. Now, currently, the primary corridors within this area include, for example, State Route 52, I-8, and State Route 94, and we also have State Route 67 to the east. Now, these corridors also serve connecting points to the other major corridors that you will hear as part of the other presentations, or you heard also from Brian. And these include, for example, the I-5 corridor, the State Route 63, the 805, and the State Route 125. Now, these corridors are limited in transit options with the exception of I-8, which is served by the green line and orange lines. Now, there are also a number of rapid buses that traverse the subregion. As you can see here, we have the I-15 rapid services, the Mid-City and the Mid-Center line stations, and we also have the South Bay Rapid that comes from along the 805 and then uses the State Route 95. Now, we recognize that there are many other local transit services, but we're only highlighting the rapid services for the existing conditions. Other transit services that traverse this region include the Oceanside to downtown San Diego commuter rail, and we also see the Mid-City Mid-Coast trolley, which you can see here on the top left. And supplementing this, we also have the building out of the adoptive active transportation projects. Now, within this subregion, it is important to recognize the existing community assets to make communities in the subregion mobility hubs. So for example, El Cajon demonstrates the building blocks for a solid gateway mobility hub, serving as an entry point into the regional light rail network located in downtown that has already embraced development. Now, also included in this subregion, we have the Kearny Mesa and the Mission Valley Mobility Hub, which are the region's top set of job centers that demonstrate how new job centers can be provide dense housing development that can be co-located with employment to offer a live-work experience. And to the west of this region, we have the largest mobility hub, which is the urban core. Now let's take a look at the first phase of proposed improvements for the subregion. So one of the first steps of addressing the travel needs of the subregion is to implement the technology backbone that will allow us to holistically manage highways and arterials within the mobility hubs concepts. So the map here shows a system of complete quarters regional arterial, which Brian also introduced in his region, which is part of the initial investments for the subregion in 2025. Now, proposed improvements along this local network of arterials includes the implementation of a smart intersection system Now, this concept includes technology that allows and processes data for traffic signal controllers, sensors, and connected vehicles to monitor and adjust signal operation. With this technology, we can improve travel times, reduce stop and go conditions, and create a safe environment for local streets and intersections. Now, this concept also includes smart sensors technology. And this technology can create a safe environment for bicyclists, pedestrians, and these smart sensors can also provide data on collisions and near misses, so unsafe intersections and roadway segments can be identified for improvements. This technology will provide the priority treatments for rapid transit services, freight, and emergency vehicles to enhance travel times and on-time performance. Now, this technology is built upon an existing project currently underway in partnership with Caltrans, Sandag, and the county to incorporate 18 miles of fiber on State Route 67 from Lakeside to Ramona this summer. Now, this broadband connectivity is needed for the technology solutions to improve operations, improve traffic flow, but also improve safety. Also, adding fiber also closes the loop of our rural digital divide by expanding affordable, high-speed internet services to the communities along the corridor. Now, these early investments in the 2025 really provide the infrastructure, communication technology, which serve as the foundation for our rural complete corridor concepts and the next OS 5 big moves. Additional investments in 2025 include 3 rapid light transit services, which are supported by the regional arterial network and the technology. And this includes the rapid from Kearny Mesa, one of our region's Tier 1 employment centers, to Pacific Beach. Another one from La Mesa to North Park and Hillcrest on University Avenue, connecting with Ocean Beach. We also have a rapid from Spring Valley through the Southeast San Diego to downtown San Diego. Now, these routes serve our low-income communities, providing much needed connection to our neighborhood schools, our parks, the beach, medical facilities, and jobs. Other noted proposed transit projects that traverse this region include upgrades to our commuter services. This includes the coaster and the Pacific Surfliner that traverse this region within the Gaslamp as well area. Now, supplementing this list of projects includes providing the missing links to our active transportation network projects for the San Diego River Trail or the Pershing Drive Bikeway. Now I'm going to turn it over to Tuari, and she's going to walk us through the proposed investments for the 2035 and 2050 phase.
Thanks, Alex. So Brian spoke earlier about 2035 being a pivotal point in our region's mobility, and that's certainly the case here. The new complete corridor investments start with the development of managed lanes. A core part of the managed lanes network is technology that makes our corridors smart and responsive to real-time conditions. The next OS will allow us to monitor, manage, and optimize our freeway network, traffic signals, ramp meters, and transit operations. It also provides new tools like dynamic lane assignment, speed harmonization, real-time traveler information, and dynamic routing. And the investment in smart infrastructure like sensors and communications technology makes the hard infrastructure responsive and adaptable to changing conditions. Connected technologies can help prevent accidents and save lives, helping cities and our region achieve Vision Zero goals. So I'd like to highlight a few of the new managed lanes projects within this subregion, starting with State Route 52. So this is a critical connection between the El Cajon Gateway Mobility Hub and the Kearny Mesa Major Employment Center. It has 3 managed lanes between the Interstate 805 and Mass Boulevard. One of those lanes would be reversible, and with technology, allow us to be responsive to the changing demands of this corridor by adding capacity where it's needed most. Interstate 8 has 4 managed lanes between I-805 and Greenfield Drive in El Cajon, which will encourage carpooling and add capacity to this major goods movement corridor. And State Route 94 between Interstate 5 and State Route 125 has 3 managed lanes. and State Route 125 has 2 managed lanes. These east-west managed lanes projects provide a direct connection to the north-south corridors that by not only providing a system of managed lanes, but also supporting supporting connectors and direct access ramps for transit to connect suburban and the rural parts of our county to major medical campuses, key employment centers, and universities and more. So these corridors, with the complete corridors arterial network that you heard Alex talk about earlier, provide improved access for east-west travel within our region and improve connections for State Route 67 that's shown here on the map in green. This has shoulder widening and straightening projects that are proposed for 2035 between Mapleview and Dye Road. And there are multiple rapid routes proposed for 2035 in this subregion. And several of them are very much dependent upon the complete corridors managed lane network. I'll walk you through a few of them. Looking at the top here, you can see the rapid from State Route 52. It provides a transit alternative and a 1-seat ride from El Cajon and Santee to the major employment centers of Kearney Mesa and Sereno Valley. Key to the success of this route are the mobility hub features, which make taking transit easier with investments in car share, ride share, microtransit, as well as park and ride facilities at anchor transit stations, as well as much more, all while working with local jurisdictions on these mobility improvements. And by 2035, the rapid that Alex spoke to you about earlier that serves our low-income and communities of color from Spring Valley to the east through Southeast San Diego to the west, all the way to downtown, will be improved to have dedicated lanes to prioritize transit for this corridor. And rapid services will continue to supplement those east-west routes, providing localized travel and connection to San Diego State University, as you can see in the middle of the map, traveling along Euclid Avenue, 54th, and College Avenue. And there's an additional East County new line that will have a new rapid that connects from El Cajon all the way down to South Bay and the border. So the expansion of the rapid network is supported by improvements to the 2 existing light rail lines, the orange and the green lines, by adding double and triple tracking and grade separations to these light rail lines, not to mention the improved connections to all of the other major transit investments, as you can see with the purple commuter rail line here shown, or our Los Angeles corridor. And even more of the adopted bike network gets built out by 2035, such as the full on-street connection for the San Diego River Trail between State Route 52 and Interstate 8, and the Center City project from La Mesa to Encanto. And these connections will allow people to safely bike to work, bike for leisure, or to school between communities such as La Mesa, Lemon Grove, and Encanto. So moving further east within the subregion, there are proposed additional improvements on the rural corridors, which include widening of shoulders to create median buffers or turning lanes to allow emergency responders rapid access. There are also curve warning and speed feedback signs to improve safety, the implementation of lane assignment and routing to provide rapid access and greater capacity, and better travel information for roadway conditions or emergency notifications. So now let's move into 2050. Much of the east-west managed lanes network and connectors are built out in 2035, but the additional managed lane segments and supporting connectors along State Route 52 and Interstate 8 west of I-805 are proposed for 2050, along with the remaining northern segment of State Route 125. So the expansion of the rapid system is supported by improvements to the existing green and orange light rail lines, and also the new east-west commuter rail line, where the Gateway Mobility Hub and El Cajon connects all the way down to the urban mobility hub, giving riders the choice of continuing directly into downtown or giving them the choice to go directly to the Central Mobility Hub, which provides direct access to the airport. So by 2050, it's also anticipated that all of our mobility hub features, flexible fleets, and opportunities for increased land use densities within these hubs will be fully realized. And by 2050, the full build out of our adopted bike plan will be in place, supporting the mobility hubs, transit, and regional connections, completing links along corridors such as State Route 52, that one could travel from Santee to Sereno on a bike, making this truly a complete corridor.
And you can see here in this next slide, the full build out of all the proposed east-west connections within the subregion. So when all of the regional plan projects are put together, you can see the proposed improvements meets the needs for east-west travel, which also does include, again, adding capacity through a system of managed lanes, some of them having reversible lanes to meet the corridor's changing demands. And these investments will provide additional travel options that are not there today, and improve connectivity within and around the mobility hubs. These projects really do continue to recognize the different mobility needs within the subregion and provide efficient transportation options for everyone. And with that, I'll now turn it over to Jennifer to talk about our South to Central subregion.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Williamson. I'm a principal planner here at Sandag and the co-lead for the Transit Leap move of the regional plan. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about our south and central portion of the region. Just to familiarize yourself with what area we're going to be covering, this area is bounded by SR 56 to the north, the I-15, 125 to the east, the international border to the south, and the Pacific Ocean to the west. This area is home to our 3 Tier 1 employment centers, all of our light rail services, all of our rapid services, some of the densest communities in the region, as well as some of our primary activity centers. Next slide, please. So first, let's take a look at our existing system that we have out there today. And we'll start with the I-15, which is shown in the northeast corner of your map here. And this is really our primary managed lanes that we have operating in the region today. And I'm sure you're all very familiar with how I-15 operates, but just so you know, we have 4 managed lanes in the center of the freeway, which allows for shared rides and transit to have a full level of priority. There are 2 direct access ramps on the I-15 shown in this graphic, one at Sabre Springs and one at the Hillary Dar. This allows for transit to access at these sites to major transit centers. And then as we look at the regional transit network, you'll see the purple line there, and that's our Coaster Low Sand Corridor. The Coaster has had extensive improvements of late, including double tracking and improvements to the Del Mar cliffs. So those are shown there in the purple. You'll see our light rail system shown in the magenta on the slide here. And as I said, this portion of our subregion includes all of our light rail lines. So you have the blue line trolley that operates from San Ysidro all the way up to Old Town today. And then very exciting, in November, it will operate all the way to University City. We also have our green line that provides connections from Old Town across Mission Valley to serve SDSU, very important university, and then over to Santee. And then finally, you'll see the orange line in the eastern portion of the sub area, which operates between downtown San Diego and El Cajon Boulevard. This really provides the primary backbone of our transit system. I mentioned that we do have our five rapid services in this region as well, and you'll see those identified in the map in green. So probably the key component of our existing network that you're very well familiar with is that a number of our active transportation routes are under construction right now, and they'll be in place for 2025, which will allow us to build on the active transportation network. Next slide, please. So let's talk about what's happening in 2025. If you look at the complete corridors and you look at the southeastern edge of your graphic there, you'll see that we have the addition of a new State Route 11 that will attach to the Otay Mesa border crossing. This is an essential goods movement corridor that provides a whole new access for freight and trucks to access our transit system. You'll also see that our mobility hubs come up here, and we kind of call these mobility hubs in training, if you will. The urban areas of San Diego are ripe for transportation options. And San Ysidro today largely acts as a de facto mobility hub, with the exception of the land uses. We have extensive micro-mobility down at San Ysidro. We have a large number of transit options, and people are able to make short trips, medium trips, and long trips from San Ysidro today. So as you go up into the central part of the corridor, what you'll see here is that we have a connector that connects from the 125 and the 94. And if you'll recall, a couple of years ago at our board meeting, we heard that this was a very poorly designed interchange, and that this connector was needed so that we allowed for free flow conditions between these two major freeways. And then finally, you'll see kind of the squiggly lines in the center of your graphic there. That's our active transportation routes. And as I said before, what we're doing in 2025 is really building off the success of the Transnet Bike Early Action Program. And you'll see here we have our Central Avenue bike lane, and we have the Pershing. Those are the dark squiggles on your map there. And those really provide a fully off-street bike lane for people of all ages and all activity levels. And as Alex and Tueri shared with you before, overlaid on top of all of this, kind of in the background, is our Next OS and our smart signals and smart technologies. Next slide, please. And here you have the coaster that comes down. And what's happening with the coaster, as I said before, the Los Angeles corridor has had extensive improvements. In 2025, because we have laid the groundwork with the double tracking of the coaster, we're able to increase the frequencies and headways. We're also continuing to make those improvements to the bluffs as we access downtown San Diego and get the coaster off the coast there. Next slide, please. So now we're in 2035, and really what you see here is that the mobility hubs get much darker. And the reason for that is that all the transit investments, the Next OS investments, and the incentives that we're providing for flexible fleet operators allows us to really start to intensify the areas around where transit and our complete corridors are going to be operating. What you see here first on this graphic is our complete network of managed lane system throughout the south and central portion of the corridor. I know it looks like a lot of squiggly lines, but let's break it down a little bit for you. So the I-5 and the I-805 will move to a condition with 6 lanes and 4 managed lanes, almost operating the entire distance along that corridor, along both those corridors. We also add our managed lanes connectors, and those are the green dots that you see between each of the different types of managed lanes on the system. The managed lanes in this portion of the county are going to be largely used for transit and shared mobility. But also, I can't focus enough on how important 805 and 5 are for goods movement. With SR 11 and the new POE coming online, it becomes very critical that the 805 offers some level of priority for goods movement to continue to operate seamlessly the entire distance from north to south in this corridor. The I-15 in 2030 gets completed. Right now, you'll see that it ends just to the north of the 52. In this phase of the plan, we'll be extending it all the way down to the 94 with 4 managed lanes and the connectors that support those. I'm not going to focus on our east-west lines that are shown on this graphic because you heard about those from Tueri and Alex. But let's just look real quickly at some of the inner city or the urban corridor managed lanes. Those do come up, and Alex and Tueri talked to you a little bit about those. So you'll see that the 52 comes online and the 94 managed lanes come online as well through the center of our area. Next, please. So now we have our bike system. And as you heard before, the focus of this phase of the project is to complete our coastal rail trail. This is a 44-mile bike route that will operate all the way from Oceanside down to downtown San Diego. And that'll be one great ride, I think, once you can make that in its entirety. So pieces of that ride or that system come together here in 2035. Additionally, the Bayshore Bikeway, which we've been working on for many, many years, gets largely completed in this phase of the plan. So you'll be able to ride a bike from downtown San Diego and then wrap around all the way through to Coronado. And then the San Diego River Trail, providing connections to SDSU West and other points along the Mission Valley area, will be completed in this phase of the plan. So next, let's talk about transit. It's my favorite. So here is our next generation rapid routes. There's over 20 of these rapid routes in the study area. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm open to answering any questions. What I'd like to focus on here is some of our next generation rapid routes in different portions of the community. I neglected to tell you that in 2025, we do have 4 rapid routes that come online, and I think you saw those, but we can go back if you'd like to cover those. But in 2035, some additional routes come online, and those include the Rapid 640 along I-5 that will use the managed lanes that I mentioned earlier. Rapid 640 is kind of a precursor, if you will, for the Blue Line Express, and it will provide for a one-seat ride all the way from the border into downtown San Diego, and it'll help relieve some of the congestion that we have on our trolley lines today. And then if you look down at the south side of at the south bottom portion of your map, if you will, we have the Rapid 709. We learned from our outreach efforts that we need better connectivity between the trolley and our eastern communities of Chula Vista. Rapid 709 will provide a fast, convenient access from the Blue Line to Southwestern College and to Otay Ranch. That's a primary movement that we saw again and again in our research. And then continuing up through the center of our region, we have Rapid 41 that will connect Fashion Valley through Claremont, Linda Vista, serve UTC, and ultimately UCSD, providing yet another critical link to our universities in the region. And finally, we'll skip up to the top of that map along Mira Mesa Boulevard between I-15 and 805. You'll see 2 rapid routes connecting Mira Mesa and Sorrento Valley. One of those is our existing Rapid 237, which will get improvements to provide a higher level service, more priority, and faster speed along Mira Mesa Boulevard. We've also been working cooperatively with the city of San Diego on acquiring some right-of-way along Carroll Canyon Road for future development there. So you'll see a parallel line to Mira Mesa Boulevard with a rapid route that will operate between I-15 and I-805, and then ultimately into UTC and UCSD. Now let's talk about the rail projects. So the light rail in 2035 gets extensive improvements as well. We have a fabulous foundation with the trolleys that are out there today, but we'll be looking to speed those up. We'll be looking at all the stations to ensure that they are productive stations and warranted in those areas. We'll also be looking at where we can add double tracking in Santee. We'll be identifying areas where we can do grade separations to provide a higher level of speed and connectivity in the region. And in 2025 and 2035, I neglected to mention that all of our transit services will get increases in frequency and span of service. For simplicity's sake, all of our transit services will be operating basically at 10 minutes all day. And what we've learned with transit is that if you can offer 10-minute service all day, people can throw away their schedules. They don't need them anymore because they can walk out and they're virtually guaranteed a ride. So now let's talk about passenger rail. So what you see here is our passenger rail, and the line that comes down the coast, I-5, is our low sand corridor. And we have some big changes planned for 2035, if you will. In 2035 on the low sand corridor, the coaster will get the Del Mar Tunnel. So essentially we'll be able to finally get the coaster off the cliffs there. We'll also be looking at adding a station at UTC. And then as we continue southbound into downtown San Diego, a new station at the convention center. Increased frequencies on the coaster will allow people to access that route all day long. And then the other route that you see here on the map, and we'll start at the south portion in National City, the purple line there is our Purple Line. And this one is very exciting and near and dear to me. So this project in 2035 would operate from National City. It would continue up through the center of our subregion, if you will. It will serve City Heights we currently have it at the Centerline station. And then it will go down to serve SDSU West. And then ultimately it will travel over to Kearny Mesa to provide access to the the hospital centers, the Sharp and Children's Hospital Centers along 163 there, connect into the employment site of Kearny Mesa over to UTC, and then terminate in this phase of the plan at Sorrento Mesa. And let me just share with you real quickly that this graphic right here does not show the alignment traveling through to City Heights. Through subsequent analysis and study, we are encouraging and will be identifying that the route does travel through City Heights in the text of the regional plan. So with that, let's move to 2050. Oh, and I'm sorry, Phil, can you go back to 2035? I apologize, I forgot something. So, you know, I focused a lot on all the projects that are on the graphic, but there's some really good goods movement projects that I want to take a minute to highlight in this phase of the plan too. So we have the Harbor Drive 2.0 study. That's kind of a weird name, but essentially what it means is that we're doing pedestrian and goods movement on Harbor Drive to facilitate better access to our ports and the goods movement areas of the Harbor Drive area. We know that's a very congested area today, and that will be extensive improvements. And that'll include a high level of technology improvement as well. And then additionally, we have the Vesta Drive or the Vesta pedestrian bridge. And this has been a project long in the making. And what this will do is it'll connect the wet and dry sides of the port and the military bases out there and allow people to pass without having to access the major roadways. So those are a couple of very significant projects that I didn't want to gloss over. So 2050. In 2050, you know, the managed lanes are largely built out. So we only have a few more left. And these are our urban managed lanes that you'll see here in 2050. And these are identified, you'll see at the bottom of our corridor, we have the 905 come online. This is 2 managed lanes in each direction from I-5 all the way over to SR11. This will help facilitate, again, great access for goods movement as well as cars. But then also we have a rapid route that will travel through that area and really benefit from the inclusion of those managed lanes. We have an additional 2 lanes on the 125 operating all the way from the Otay Mesa border all the way up into Chula Vista to connect to the 54. And what I'll share with you in a minute is that we have some rapid routes that will cut across the 54 as well to make use of the managed lanes. And then all the way up at the north part of our corridor is the 56. And those get 2 managed lanes as well. And what that'll do is provide point-to-point priority access for our rapid routes that operate from I-15 over to our job center at Sorrento Valley and UTC. So those connectors are really quite essential in this portion of our study of our phase year 2050. Next slide, please. So here we have our bike lanes, and really the focus in 2050 is on providing connections to our new central mobility hub, which is going to be critical and thriving at that point. And these active transportation projects will allow for all the micro-mobility and flexible fleets to operate from the central mobility hub out to our urban communities. And then additionally, we will finalize that coastal rail trail, that 44 miles is complete in this portion of the plan. And then at the south end of the graphic there, you see that we are focused on providing better connectivity to the border in this portion of the plan. Next slide. And now the rail and the light rail. So again, the purple line we showed you earlier we'll have a portion of this route extend down from National City all the way to San Ysidro, and then over to the cross-border terminal. That'll provide a one-seat ride from the border up to our urban communities. And then we add a branch. So the lines branch at National City. One goes up to our urban communities, and then one comes along our I-5 coastal communities to access downtown San Diego and the Central Mobility Hub. And before I go a little bit further, when we first started the development of the regional plan, we talked about the importance of the Circle 8, if you will, for transit access. And if you look at this graphic, what you'll see is that we achieved the Circle 8. The circles and the curves aren't as prominent as we, might have made with the previous version, but for rail, you don't really do curves. So you do see here that we do have a Circle 8, which will allow for an incredible amount of connectivity and access from all points of the region. As Alex Santuari mentioned before, our east-west line comes in and it cuts across from El Cajon all the way into downtown San Diego or the Central Mobility Hub. One of the more exciting pieces of our rail network in this phase, if you look up to the north end of the map now, the coaster comes down, and as you're all aware right now, it stops in Sorrento Valley, which is just west of the freeway as the station today. Doesn't allow the best connectivity in the world, and we have to provide a lot of shuttle service to get folks up to the Mesa. So what we're looking at here in 2050 for the coaster is a branch line that will operate along from the Del Mar Tunnel and bring folks up into the Mesa to connect to the Purple Line and to a very significant mobility hub in Sorrento Valley that will provide for a large option of flexible fleets, micromobility, scooters, e-bikes, you name it. Sorrento Valley, I believe, will have those options available to us. So next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Phil. I'm gonna have to ask you to go back. There's so many projects. I keep kind of mixing them up. But finally, the light rail system, I can't leave that alone here. So we've basically added our double tracking, we've increased frequencies, and we've done grade separations. And so now in this portion of the plan, we're really focused on frequency and the analysis of where additional grade separations might be warranted across the system on the light rail network. So I just wanted to put that plug in. And with that, I think that wraps up most of our projects in 2050. And I'm going to turn it over to Colleen to wrap us up.
Thank you, Catherine. So, Chair, that concludes the staff presentation and sub-regional video presentations that we did for the board. So we'd be happy to take questions and have discussion at this time.
Wonderful. Thank you for that presentation. And now if working group members would like to make any comments or you have questions, please turn on your camera or raise your hand. This is your opportunity. So I'll wait for the room to warm up a little bit here, and we will kick it off with Ms. Rosina Lizarraga.
Yeah, thank you. It's Miss Paula present on the board? Yes, right? I think yes. Yeah, I just want to make her a direct question in regards how the feeling of discussions within the planners in the SANDAC department, with the people who's planning all this and considering all the people's input in regards short-term project implementation, because it was a common questioning and inquiring and concern about how long it's going to take to get those projects done in the community. Because in regards prioritization is also another concern that it was addressed within the several input opportunities that we had to discuss this type of topics. So this is something that arises to me and the community members that I'm talking with, how long it's going to take and how they're going to prioritize. I know it's been very self-explanatory about how this is going to do it, but my concern is that the mostly seniors that I'm working with, and they're concerned about how long it's going to take for us to see a change. So this is my concern as community resident, because we are a community. I don't like to call it a concerned community, but I like to call it target communities. That's my concern and my question.
And I'm sorry, can you clarify your question? How long is the
What
plan?
is the thoughts about the people who's planning and proposing those projects, and how they express it to the community? What is the conversations within the SANDAC department and the planning department? How did they oversee these concerns about, it's a common concern about all the region, not only my community, but how long is gonna take? And what is it, the thoughts of them as planners, as seniors planners?
Okay, Tuari, do you want to take on that question? Or I don't know if
Yeah.
Colleen is here.
Yeah, sorry. Colleen is actually, she had a plan time out of the office today, so she's not able to join us. I'm sure she would have loved to have been here. But just with the changing of the date, it overlapped with her vacation schedule. So I will do my best to try and answer what I think is the question is that you are asking related to the phasing when the projects are able to be implemented. And so the plan has 3 different years that it looks at: 2025, 2035, and 2050. And so the sub-regional presentations highlighted those projects that fit within each of those phase years. I think your other question is more related to the planners' discussions on some of the more how we implement any of this work in the near term. So I'm assuming you're asking how we do any implementation of projects prior to those phase years. Is that correct?
Yeah, the prioritization, that's what the best word to describe it. It is, I say, it's not a common, it's not my concern, is everybody's concern. How they're gonna prioritize, knowing the fact that we've been targeted as a community of concern since a long time ago. Thank you.
Okay. So the prioritization of the plan and how the projects were prioritized is in Appendix T. And I know we have Allison Wood, our regional plan project manager. So Allison, if I get any of the appendix letters incorrect, feel free to interrupt and correct me. But so that one really goes into the details of how the projects were assigned by phase year. I think what I may be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rosina, for reading into your question, I think you're asking if there's the ability to implement anything earlier. And we have heard and had these discussions with a lot of community members, several of you here on this working group. And I believe that you're asking what are planners' discussions on what could be done earlier than what is currently identified in 2025, 35, and 50. And so that's something that we are looking at as what are near-term opportunities that would require a budget amendment from our board to be able to implement anything in the earlier phase that's not those 3 identified years of the plan, because the plan is a long-term planning document. And so that is something that we would, if a budget amendment is able to move forward, we would want to discuss how those funds would be allocated, what types of projects we would bring forward, and that would be an agendized item that we would bring to the Social Equity Working Group. So apologies if I'm not understanding your question 100% correctly, but I think that's what you're trying to ask.
Yes, that's what I say, what I was feeling on the planning department as you think, talking to other colleagues and how we're gonna do this faster, because people's asking for quicker and faster implementation of those projects for the communities that we're working with. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tuari. We're gonna move to Craig Jones, followed by Barry Pollard.
You're on mute, Craig.
All right, it sounds like Craig is having some technical difficulties. So while he works that out, let's move on to Mr. Pollard.
Can you hear me? Excellent. You guys, I really hate to be the stick in the mud here. In the South Central presentations, in very few, we're called the social equity, right? I haven't heard one comment about any changes, moves to address the equity issue. As I've been, listening, I love the rural kind of investment in the backbone that was articulated earlier. I see no backbone conversation involved in San Isidro, involved in Barrio Logan, or in Southeast San Diego. This is an equity working group. And my fear, and I still have this fear, is that when all these iOS kind of systems are ready to rock and roll, we're going to be looked at and said, sorry, you guys got to wait because we don't have any infrastructure to support it. I've heard nothing that eased my level of comfort. So the first issue, man, is the 2025. I didn't hear any investment in any sort of backbone, no analysis, no evaluation, nothing. It was like that comment and that process has totally been ignored. And I hope I'm wrong. So I want us to take a look at that and discuss, you know, it's what backbone we have, what are we going to need? Are we ready to get all the iOS, the smart sort of systems? Because in 2035 and 2050, this community is not going to look the way it does now. And we're really going to need a lot of assistance in the background, I think, because nobody's brought that up. I still don't have a good inventory of what we have. Are we ready? Or what do we need to do to get ready for some of these changes? A. B, the last conversation about expediting some of these programs, I am going to be interested in listening to the outline of the Appendix T, because again, I didn't see any equity related shifts in priorities, changes, nothing. And if you recall, my comments earlier in the year were about, we talk a really, really good game about equity, but when it comes time to implement changes that may cause some ruffles, crickets, nothing. So I want us to take a look at this, at the process. I'm just concerned, you guys. I love everything that's going on, except I don't see any equitable related sort of changes. It's business as usual. We have talked about these redlined areas. We've talked about the underserved communities, and it literally hears. And my concern is the public's going to hear the same thing I'm hearing. We're going to look and say, well, what the hell are we doing in areas that have been underserved for 40, 50 years? How are we going to catch up with this? Are we going to? Is it realistic? And ignoring it is not the answer. If we can't do it, tell us what we can expect and what we can't expect. Be candid with it. I'm not expecting the checkbooks and the whole priorities to change and do anything kind of crazy, but I have seen, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen any equity related changes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And I want to remind our working group that this is your opportunity. It won't be your only one. We will, I was very adamant about bringing this item forward so we can digest it fully. So I thank you, Mr. Pollard. And I would encourage the rest of the working group members to please raise your hand. Please turn on the video.
Yes.
We are being heard. We will be heard, not only by the staff, but also by the board. And I also want to kindly remind everybody that whatever you put on the chat, when somebody plays this video in 10 years, they're not going to hear they're not going to be able to read your chat. So I would highly encourage you, even if it's for 2 seconds, if you want to make the comment, I would encourage you to do so. So we are going to try Craig Jones, see if his mic works. Not yet.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh, we're good. Good to go.
Very good. Sorry about that before. I was going to defer to others first anyway, but yeah, echoing what Rosina and Barry are talking about, could we take a few minutes in this meeting to get a staff explanation of prioritization and how that relates to equity? Separate and apart from that, I wanted to point something out for everybody and ask a question. And I don't know if it's possible to put it up on screen, or I can do a share. Can I do a share screen? Would I be allowed to do that?
Staff on production, if that's allowable, I'm not sure.
Oh, maybe not, because what I was going to
I
add.
don't think so, because Greg, because you don't have like hosting
Got it.
capabilities. So
Okay. Is it possible for staff to put up on screen from chapter 2, page 27? It's a map exhibit.
While we do that, Craig, why don't we
Yeah.
take the next speaker? So staff, if you could pull up that exact page that Craig is mentioning, and why don't we come back to you after Caro, and then hopefully that will be up on screen. How does that sound to you?
Thank you.
Okay, so Caro?
Thank you. Once again, my name is Carolina. I'm with the Environmental Health Coalition. We thank the staff for the presentation. We've seen the presentation many, many times. And so it's interesting to see the recording, I must say that. But we thank the staff. We know that SANDAG is up against a huge challenge, and that is that we are, the agencies is looking at a plan that's looking to transform and invest in ways that have not been done in the past. So undoing historical disinvestment in real transit solutions it's going to be a huge challenge for us as Environmental Health Coalition, and also as part of the San Diego Transportation Equity Working Group, which includes CPI, City High CDC, Mid-City CAN, and San Diego 350. We've submitted a letter on May 27th as part of the comment to the draft regional transportation plan. And I think it would be valuable for us to present those priorities in this group, maybe in the next meeting. But just so that I don't want to super extend my points, we have 10 priorities, which we've identified through a lot of community engagement for the regional transportation plan. And I don't want to go through those right now, but the highest levels priority are that we want to see investments in our communities now. So we want to see specific benefits in the next 5 years. So by 2025. Or more like 4 years now. And the reason why that is because our communities are hurting now. They've been hurting, they were hurting before the pandemic, and they're hurting more because of the pandemic now. And we also know that if we provide immediate solutions to our environmental justice communities first, it's in best interest to everyone in San Diego. So some of the things that we would want to see by 2025 is a dramatic improvement or makeover of the bus system. And the reason why that is because buses provide the best opportunity to provide immediate relief. And it's something that doesn't require breaking concrete, for example, as the long-term projects that we also support, like the Purple Line going through Central City Heights. We also believe the Youth Opportunity Pass should be implemented by 2025, and 24-hour service. Our transit system, especially those serving environmental justice communities. I don't want to go through every project, but those are kind of some examples that we think should be phased by 2025. We also believe the Blue Line Express needs to be included in the project list. Yes, it is a long-term project. Yes, it is cost extensive, but it's costing our region more. The fact that our communities are not being connected frequently and fast to downtown. So I'm gonna end it there, but to suggest that maybe we could present the 10 big moves during the next meeting as part of our coalition. And thank you. And we thank the staff, and we know that you're up in front of an extremely difficult challenge, and that is to undo historical disinvestment and somehow take us into the future at a time that is really challenging. So we really appreciate all the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. And I think that is a wonderful suggestion for this body to hear about the 10 big moves, maybe at our next meeting. And thank you for that recommendation. How are we doing with the page that Craig asked for, Jane?
Jane,
You're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, we're trying to pull it up now.
Okay, well, I'll let Faye speak while you guys are trying to do that. Is that
Yeah.
okay, Craig? Or do you want to just go ahead? Okay, we're good. All right, Faye?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'd like to thank you all, the Sandag staff, for doing an amazing job. I know it's a lot of work just to put all these pieces together, but I just like to air some of my concerns. Number one, it's the funding source for this huge project. I'm just hoping that the consumers will not be affected by the sources of funding. For example, that there won't be additional price hikes on fares or passenger lanes and also how it will affect the low-income communities. So that's one. There should be some discussion on how our low-income communities can be sort of like protected from any price hikes resulting from this in funding this huge project. Secondly, I agree with a lot of the discussions that have been going on with the team. I really believe that we have been overlooked in terms of a micro discussion for the low-income communities. It's always a pass-through. It's never like the community, for instance, in National City or community in City Heights have been discussed in a micro level, how they will benefit from the transition. And again, I'd like to raise the issue of social displacement costs, because the displacement costs to move small businesses away from their usual location because of the introduction of, let's say, a railway should be equitable, especially for the low-income communities. I'm so scared about the gentrification that will result from these huge moves. And I think if there is a plan to really move away people from where their current location is, there should be a plan for equitable distribution or compensation for these low-income small businesses who are thriving on very limited resources. We cannot think of profits all the time. We also have to include the human aspect of how they'll be able to survive after the transition. So those are my 2 points.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And before we go on to the next speaker, it was an oversight on my part. I just want to make sure that the record shows that Randy Torres Van Vleck joined. He represents City Heights CDC. He joined earlier. I see my text and I apologize. And I believe Elizabeth Liu also joined from Nile Sisters. So with that, Craig, the floor is yours.
Good. Yeah, is that map exhibit available?
Yes, Catherine, I believe we have it available. And while Catherine's pulling that up, I think we do have staff on this call. So Chair, if you'd like staff to respond to any of the comments or questions, just to provide more information of what is in the appendices, what is in the plan, what they'd like us to come back and discuss a little bit more, we'd be more than happy to have that discussion, because some of the things, and I think we've heard this before. And so Barry, thank you very much for the comment about where the projects are located within, our historically red line, our environmental justice, all of the communities that we know are important for advancing equity. We have Appendix H and the AB 805 strategies that does talk about that. But I think what we're hearing is that it's not very clear. That needs to be pulled forward so that it's really well understood by not only you, but also our community members as to where that's located. And then we also, I just want to, if there's a desire to have any discussion on some of the specifics around the Transit Leap network, Brian Lane is on the call and he co-led our Transit Leap, and he'd be more than happy to talk about any questions you may have related to that. And Marissa Mangan, who also led our mobility hubs, is on the call. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows staff is available and willing to answer questions to help you.
Tueri, before we go on to Craig, yes, we absolutely would like staff to address any of the questions that were brought forward.
Okay, perfect. So is it Marissa who's going to chime in here, or?
I'm happy to speak to the map. I don't know if first it makes sense to have Brian talk about some of the near-term Transit Leap enhancements, because the flexible fleet services, mobility hubs kind of directly build upon what's phased in with Transit Leap, to augment.
Okay, well, let's have Brian talk, and then Craig, feel free. We want, you to make sure your question is answered. So feel free to interrupt us if you feel like we're getting off course with what you wanted as your question.
Sure. And it may not take a whole lot of time. This map just really struck me, but yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, I encourage folks to jump into Appendix A and look at all the projects that are coming in by phase year. It's a lot to look at, I understand. So if you do have specific questions about projects and when they're being phased in, let us know. We can jump into the viewer and show those. The other social equity working group we're working with, Caro's group, have asked, to start seeing those frequency enhancements on the locals and scans of service enhancements on the locals and when they're going to happen. So we're working on adding, it may end up in Appendix A or somewhere else separately, but a whole list that shows by 2025, 2035, and 2050 when those actual local and rapid frequency enhancements are going to happen. So we're still struggling to work on that, working hard. Some folks worked over the weekend, and we're going to get that out to folks as soon as possible. I mean, I think you'll be really excited. There are a lot of frequency enhancements that we're hoping to start as soon as 2025, and then start phasing them in between 2025 and 2035. So if there's any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer those as we move forward with this.
Thanks, Brian. And then I can go ahead and speak to the map. What we're depicting here is all of the bright pink or magenta regional mobility hub areas, the blobs as we like to call them, where we're assuming there's kind of a real saturation of transit services and flexible fleets. Those are the areas that represent high levels of trip making that residents, employees, and visitors are carrying out in our region and what we've modeled into the future. However, in the real world, flexible fleets, whether you're talking about a shuttle, microtransit service, e-bikes, and any other type of rideshare option, people need to get all over the region. They're not just going to be relegated or confined to some of those mobility hub areas. So what we've done here with the map is demonstrate how using a 10-minute kind of connection threshold. That's what's been stated to us with early outreach processes and going out to the community. We've done focus groups, a human-centered design effort, intercept surveys, et cetera. 10-minute connection via flexible fleet to a transit loop station is kind of the sweet spot or the kind of maximum amount of connection time that someone's willing to make in order to then get into the transit loop network and be on their way to go to another part of the region. So the darker blue-green layer there represents the kind of 10-minute connection point. It really shows how we can extend the reach of transit beyond just first last mile, even beyond the regional mobility hub areas. And then in the inland parts of the region with the lightest blue-green, it's still very appropriate to have some level of flexible fleet services. We've seen some successes even in rural California with microtransit and Vanpool and getting people to and from a gateway mobility hub like El Cajon or Escondido, for example. So it really helps to demonstrate the coverage and the fact that communities beyond and between the hubs are still going to have great access to the flexible fleet services, which is the beauty of the flexible fleets. They can be on their own route and not be on a fixed route type of service. And as far as some of our mobility hub areas where we're in the near term implementing intelligent transportation solutions, the border mobility hub in and around San Ysidro is one perfect example of that. And I'll hand it over briefly to Alex Estrella to describe a $9 million grant that we've gotten recently to deploy solutions in that area as a starting point on a pilot basis.
Thank you, Marissa. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. So this, I'm also going to try to get to the larger question: what can we leverage right now in terms of what we can do sooner than later? And I mean, we recognize that a lot of these investment improvements are following the traditional transportation planning process, which that in itself is a huge effort. But from a project development process, it takes several years to kind of get a project running. And I'm mainly stating that just for purposes of context and background. But the example that I like to provide, for example, is that fact that we got some recent funding from the FHWA to take a look at some of the technologies that we're considering in the 5 big moves. That allows us to advance some of these initial strategic documents that we have to set in place to make sure that whatever we're building or constructing or deploying follows a strategic project delivery process to abide by federal and state regulations and so forth. And that's just mainly for context. But the federal grant allows us to test a lot of the technologies that you heard today. For example, we recognize that when we think about technology, in the project delivery process of technology, we have to do a very thorough job in understanding how that technology is going to be used. And also specifically, for example, some of the technology component out of this federal grant is identifying, the tools that be available, whether to meet kind of the folks that will be using the technology by voice activated, by multilingual applications. So that's one technology advancements that we're going to be advancing through this federal grant. The grant itself gives us $9.3 million. We're going to be doing a number of applications like the smart intersection system along 3 intersections within the city of San Diego, National City, and down in the Otay Mesa area to support the advancement of the implementation of the new port of entry. Other components of that grant itself is we're going to be looking at the implementation, for example, of mobility hub amenities that Marissa kind of referenced to. So as we start thinking about what amenities we want to include in these mobility hub areas within this grant area, down in the San Isidro area, down to the border entry area, some mobility hub components in National City and Chula Vista. Those walk-up displays that we're thinking about, those interactive displays that in fact that we design and consider input from all users of that technology to provide multilingual information, to also provide related information for folks that for purpose of accessibility. So there's some of those elements that we are considering in advance and not waiting to 2025. And this just happens to be the fact that we received a grant, but we're working with our local agencies to implement that technology. That's just one example that we're advancing a lot of the elements that in fact, when we design something, that we consider how the system will be used by all users and not just your traditional commuters. And that's just in relation to technology, but wanted to share that. So there are some projects that we're trying to leverage and advance this testing and the piloting, making sure we design those systems accurately as we proceed forward with the regional plan investments from a long-term perspective. And I could provide more information on that grant, and I could provide my information or provide a link to that grant that we received.
Thank you. Craig, did you want to ask the question? I don't know if they've answered your question.
Well, let me just observe on this map, and I wanted to point this out to everybody. To me, this is a dramatic map because the darker blue color shows the geographic extent of being able to get into Transit Leap within 10 minutes or less. This is a huge achievement, and this would be, I assume, by system build out, but that's a huge chunk of the San Diego region, and to me defines a success in this system. I would interpret this as meaning that within an hour or less, you could get to any point within this blue area, to any other point within this blue area, trip end to trip end, within an hour or less. And that would be incredible. And I hope we can achieve it. So everybody just take a look at this. It's on page 27, I think, of Appendix A. On the issue of equity, I echo the concerns, and we've talked about this a lot. We'll probably run out of time at today's meeting. And can we have this be the discussion topic in detail at our next working group meeting to get into the guts of Appendix A, Appendix B, and Appendix T on showing how equity for our disadvantaged geographically located communities will be advanced in those details. I just wanted to suggest that. Thank you.
Wonderful, Craig. Thank you. You were reading my mind. So possible topics. One of the things Jane has communicated to me is that Anne Van can potentially give a full presentation in the EJ communities for pollution reduction strategy at the next meeting.
Chair, just to say that if you can, attachment 3 of Appendix H, the social equity appendix, has the whole point of that attachment is to show specifically where projects are supporting EJ communities. So I would highly suggest, if no one's read it yet, you take a look at that and look at the maps in that and to the list of projects. I think that is going to respond directly to, and we have had a presentation from Anna on this, but we can do it again in July if that helps.
I think that's what they're requesting.
Yeah.
So I think that would be helpful. And so we're going to move on. Carol, Kim, and then Randy. So the floor is yours, Carol.
Thank you. And thank you for such a great presentation. I've also seen it before, but it also helps every time you hear it, you hear something additional. So it's great. But my question is, of course, in East Region, our biggest impact would be 52 and 67, which are, traffic congested and very difficult to use. Transitioning even from one freeway to the other is really complicated and traffic's terrible. So I'm looking at managed lanes. And I noticed that there was a couple of questions in the chat box that I also had as well too. And I wanted to know the difference between, Randy asked, what's a urban corridor managed lane and a regular managed lane? And then also the difference between connectors and managed lanes. Connectors is from Craig. But I'm also wondering, how many total managed lanes is this looking at in the future? Because I really think that that's going to help alleviate a lot of the traffic that we see by adding these managed lanes. But then I also get questions about, well, how much is this going to cost us? Are we going to have to buy cards to use it, or a monthly fee to use the managed lanes? And so I get that question a lot as well. And then my other comment is that language continues to be one of the biggest things that I hear when I'm talking to our communities. And we talk about technology, but we never talk about language, having multilingual communication with our community members for all of these communications between what the travel time is expected to be, et cetera. So are we looking at that as well for social equity?
So Chair, I can jump in and start this, and I'd say Alex or Allison, if you guys have anything to add, feel free. But in terms of the questions that were in the chat related to what is an interregional managed lanes versus what is an urban corridor managed lanes, the interregional and the urban corridor, those are really how when we were doing the data-driven planning process, it's how we started to define what are the needs and what is the use of those corridors. And so the interregional ones, they have the longest trips, they have the most VMT, they also are connecting to regions outside of San Diego. And so those managed lanes, typically what you will see proposed in the plan is 4 managed lanes, so two managed lanes in each direction. And so that is our interregional corridors. For the urban corridors, they are predominantly east-west, but also a few north-south ones, such as 163 as well as 125. Those predominantly you will see that they have occasionally 2 managed lanes, but you'll see on State Route 94 as well as 52 that there are 3 managed lanes. One of those lanes being reversible because there's a lot of peak hour conditions, so that additional managed lane is able to reverse to accommodate those demands on that corridor, with the exception of State Route 78, which does have 4 managed lanes, so 2 in each direction. So that's just kind of the difference. They're all managed lanes. It's just more the naming is related to the usage of those corridors. And then the difference between connectors and managed lane connectors, they are both the connections, providing that connection between the 2 intersecting freeways. And so one is how we provide that connection between 2, freeways that are just our general purpose, the ones that are existing in there today. The other is really needing to provide that connection for these new managed lanes. And so again, the terminology is just to help distinguish between, we do need to provide connections between intersecting freeways for the managed lanes themselves, as well as for our freeways in general. And then I don't have, Alex, do you know offhand, I know we have 11 corridors, so I don't know offhand the number of managed lanes throughout the entire system. We could certainly try and look that up and get back to you on it, but the goal was to create a system of managed lanes so that we'll see them on almost all, if not all of the corridors within the western 1/3 urbanized part of our region so that you can have the ability to seamlessly travel from the north to the south, east or west on a managed lane and not have that connection, which you can't do today, right? Today, you can only travel in the 15 as a managed lane. And then in terms of multilingual communications, we do have a language assistance plan as part of SANDAG as a whole. And so if there is a need to provide additional translation services for something other than Spanish, which is what we're offering on today's meeting presentation, I believe it is 72 hours, Jane or others, if I'm wrong on that timeline. If we get enough notice, then we're
Correct.
able to try and accommodate for that.
Yep, correct.
Wonderful, thank you. So we have 12 more minutes and we have Kim followed by Randy. And just remember, you guys, this is not going to be the last time that you're able to voice your concerns or say the positives that you like on this plan. So Kim, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I'll start with the positives. This is incredibly exciting. And I echo Carol that every time I see it, I learn something new. So thank you so much for all the staff time put into this. I think we're excited. I apologize if I didn't introduce myself. I'm Kim Heinley with Bayside Community Center up in Linda Vista, so in the North Central region. And we're particularly excited here by the light rail, the purple line coming through, especially knowing that it's going to start in 2035. That's great. And I think the fact that the blue line is opening up at the end of this year will give our residents here the opportunity to see what they can expect and to see the excitement around that. So the timing of that's great. We also are excited about the subsidized transit passes. And in particular, I would share what Kato said in terms of wanting to see the youth opportunity pass by 2025 if possible, for many reasons here, especially Linda Vista being one of the hubs where there's several universities right here, Mesa College on one end, University of San Diego on the other end, and then being a connector right along the 5 to UCSD and SDSU. It'd be great to have the opportunity pass for youth who are getting to their educational institutions. I think one question I have, just to wrap this up though, is regarding the blue on the map that we see on the screen, recognizing that that's showing that you can get to transit in 10 minutes, if I understand that correctly. And my question is, what's the assumed method of transportation to get a person from their door to that line of transportation? Because I would express a little concern about our senior citizens here in Linda Vista and those without cars who can't physically potentially walk to get to the transit line, and knowing that when MTS had to cut some bus lines a couple of years ago, that's left quite a big portion of our neighborhood in Linda Vista without walkable access to the nearest arterial bus line. And so I'm just curious, what's the assumed method of transportation that I guess that last mile connection there? Are they walking to get to the nearest method of transportation to then get connected, or what's that? I guess, does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if Marissa's still with us, I'll have her jump in and answer your question. I believe you're talking about the blue that is our flexible fleets connection to transit within 10 minutes. Yeah, Marissa, do you want to chime in here to answer Kim's question?
Yep, I can. Sorry, I had a cat going crazy in the background.
Worry.
We're assuming that there's a motorized fleet service that's going average speeds, minding the speed limit, similar to like a bus or a shuttle service that is not going to be speeding and needing to make some occasional stops. Sometimes we call it virtual stops when there's an on-demand service needing to pick people up on the way, but we're definitely thinking about a motorized shuttle service for this demonstration, for this map depiction to show some connection. So that could include definitely some door-to-door service. That's the reach that you see in the dark blue green, and then anywhere in between where someone may be getting picked up is going to mean an even lesser connection time. Now that's not including some wait time that may be involved in order to maybe hail a ride, and you kind of have to wait your turn, and that could take a few minutes, similar to the Uber Lyft experience, but it is meant to be a depiction of how once you are picked up, you can get connected to the transit service.
Thank you. That helps a lot.
No problem.
Thank you, Marissa.
All right, so I am gonna have to go at 12 o'clock, just so you guys know. So Randy, and this, once again, reiterating, this will not be the last time you will be able to speak on this particular item. So Randy, take us home.
Thank you, Chair Moreno, and thanks staff and fellow equity working group members. This is a really exciting moment for our region. You know, I want to thank the staff for all their work in getting the release of this draft out. It's a major milestone. As someone who grew up in southwestern Chula Vista and who's been working with leaders in City Heights for the past 10 years, I'm really excited for the Purple Line. That's a project that's going to really connect our South Bay communities, our urban core, mid-city, southeast communities with job centers in Mission Valley and North County. So we're looking forward to that. Phasing, you know, shrinking timelines of projects is a big question for us in Mid-City. It's something that we've grappled with for a long time. We've been part of a lot of projects, from bus rapid transit projects, centerline stations, regional bikeways, parks on top of freeways. So all those big picture regional projects, we've been involved in all kinds of them. And, you know, it took 35 years for the centerline stations. It's going to take about 10 years for the Orange Avenue Bikeway. So it is very real that our communities have to wait a long time for these projects. So the question to us is, what are we going to do differently to make projects like the Purple Line open for service in the year 2035? What are we going to do differently to keep those construction timelines on track, the planning phases on track? Because as much as I want to see the Purple Line in 2035, I'm having a hard time seeing how we're going to do it unless we change the way we've done planning in the past. So I think an in-depth analysis on what has happened to our projects these last, you know, several decades has made them take so long, and how are we going to change that moving forward? That's going to be big for us. I think we want to also just uplift Barry's comments as well. I think it'd be good to know more about how the project will advance social equity. I know that, you know, certain projects will do this and that, but it'd be good to know a little bit more, like, coherently what those social equity benefits are for our communities. Some of the other priorities include, you know, making sure that we can implement projects in the near term. So I understand that there will be some affordable fare enhancements in 2027. So we hope to learn more about that, and ideally even roll those in earlier, maybe like 2023, if possible. You know, 24-hour transit is something that was the number one public priority of Elevate SDs. So that's going to be something that we're watching, is late night, early morning transit. And then finally, I'll just end it. Last couple things on bathroom access. I know that's something that no one wants to talk about, but it's very real for our transit riders. Having bathroom access is important for dignity for our transit riders. It's not a fun thing to talk about, but it's very real. So I think having Sandag work with MTS and NCTD on a bathroom access strategy in the updated regional plan will be key. And I agree as well about the importance of anti-displacement strategies. That's super key. And so we hope to be a part of an effort to really dig in deep to how are we going to continue to keep how are we going to make the communities more affordable who are going to be benefiting from these investments, so that they're not displaced to, you know, areas that are not walkable, that are not transit friendly. So with that, it's a lot, but there's a lot in this to talk about, and I'll just end it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate everybody who spoke today. I don't see anybody from the public with their hands raised, so we're going to move on to the next item, which is possible topics for next meeting. The two that I have here is having the 10 big moves be presented to the group, and also having Miss Ann Van give the presentation, the full presentation in the EJ communities for pollution reduction strategies. As always, you guys, please feel free to communicate with me or my staff on potential topics. And so with that, if the clerk can let me know, verify if we have anybody in the public that's wishing to raise their hand on this particular item.
Well, I see a hand raised, but on the panelist side, not on the public side.
Yeah, I need to get going in 3 minutes, Mr. Pollard. Is this something that could wait, or?
Real quick, just in addition to the environmental concerns for the begging community, shall I say, let's broaden that scope a little bit from climate, and let's look at some of the indicators that Randy as well as Craig was effectiveness. How will this potentially improve the community? Or as well, if you can't do it, let us know, right? So let's just broaden the scope a little bit, other than just climate and environmental controls, which is very, very critical. But let's talk about some of the other equitable sort of issues as well, if at all possible. And I could fill in more blanks when we have more time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So we are going to move on to the next item, which is the last item, the upcoming meeting. The next working group meeting is scheduled for Thursday, July 1st, 2021 at 10:30. That will definitely change, so please stay tuned for the rescheduled date. I'd also like to announce that the second virtual public workshop for the Central Mobility Hub and Connection CMCPs is scheduled for tonight, June 7th, 2021 from 6 to 7:30. Details for this meeting are on the SANDAG website calendar. And I would encourage, and I want to thank a lot of our board members who, working group members, who have been present at multiple meetings, board meetings. Your comments are very much appreciated. And so do you guys have any questions, working group members, on this particular item? I don't think I see anybody's camera on. So no questions on that. So I don't see anybody in the public. So officially we are adjourned. Thank you everybody for your time and your participation. And we are adjourned, I'm sorry, at 11:59. Thank you, everybody.
Very much, Chair. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chair.
Good job,
Bye,
everybody. Good job, everybody. Excellent.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.